We also welcome our listening audience, and we invite everyone to check us out online at commonwealthclub.org. Please take a moment to turn off your cell phones and other wireless devices, please. Thank you. I'm Robert Milton, a member of the club's art forum, and your organizer and moderator for this program this evening. I'm very moved and pleased with the turnout on this topic. This is just amazing. Thank you all. Our topic and panel discussion tonight is about artistic creativity and consciousness, art as a positive energy in these turbulent times. The panelists are Matt McKinley, Deborah Reebok, and Michael M. Shea. Each panelist will get the opportunities to introduce themselves. After that, I will pose questions and then followed by Q&A. Okay? So we'll start with Matt first. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Matt McKinley, and I am an art addict, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
Hi.
Hi, right? Hi. And I want to also acknowledge the presence of everybody here in the room. This is community, and this is what I love. And this is the reason that I got involved with artwork. Well, so I knew from probably about my mid-20s, after I had a few jobs that required me to be somewhere 9 to 5 and do the same thing, routine, all that kind of stuff. But that was not the life that was for me. And I wanted to pursue something that I got a lot of joy out of, that kept me interested, that it got me engaged with people that thought outside the box. Right, with people that were imaginative in their living and in their livelihoods, and just something that was stimulating. Right, I plan on being here for a long time, and so the people I choose to engage with are people that I want to get something out of and give something in return, and not just talk about the grind and things that are wrong with life, but people that like to get into discussions about what can we do while we're here to create beautiful things and interact with each other in a way that's supportive, that adds something to our quality of life. And why not make a buck while doing it? I always believe that if you do what you love, the money will follow, and so I keep charging ahead at that. And so I've been at it for about 22 years now, and it's been great.
Thank you, Matt. Yes. And Deborah, right before Deborah talks, I just want everyone to know that Deborah has a show right now called Natural Extractions. And please, after the talk, take a look and check it out. Great works. All right, Deborah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking time tonight. And my name is Deborah Reebok, and I am a visual artist and photo philanthropist who wants to make a difference in the world by bringing together creativity, charity, and community. I'm originally from the East Coast and was drawn to the West Coast because I have an affinity for technology. And once I got out here and was in the tech corporate life, I realized rather quickly I needed to find some balance because it is very high pressure, high stress, and time moves in an accelerated fashion. So I thought, what would support my needs for balance? And I wanted something that was visual, that was a small form factor, easy for me to carry around, highly mobile, and so photography really fit that bill. My attraction and preference for photographic representation is with patterns and sequences, and I'm drawn to dimension, shape, light, and movement, which you'll see reflected in some of the photos. I found that photography was a vehicle to open up my awareness about the greater world of art that is in front of us every day, that we just don't take time to stop and look at, like shadows, like the way branches are arranged on a tree, designs in buildings, and those patterns exist for a moment, and then as soon as the light changes, the time changes, they're gone. So that fit with some of my business background because I look at patterns and trends. And I found that the affinity for those objects opened up my world, both inwardly with the meditative repetition of various sequences and patterns, as well as outwardly. So as an example, there's a photo in the lobby. It's circular. It's this giant orb. And when I was in Tokyo last year, we stumbled upon this fountain water park. And this orb was fascinating. There was water coming at it everywhere. It had all kinds of holes and water just all over the place. But it was in an interesting rhythm. What struck me even more was when they turned the water off. I could see the structure, and I wanted to just walk into that orb and be transported to another world. And so photography has helped open my eyes to the world around me. It's brought together my business, tech, and art in a way that has expanded my consciousness beyond anything I could think of.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. And Michael.
Hi, good evening, and thank you all for being here. This is very exciting. It's exciting that this is happening live. We've rehearsed for this, so to be together. So my favorite color is purple. Enough said. That's me. So I'm a psychotherapist. I'm an integrative psychotherapist, and what that means is we focus in integrative psychotherapy not just on what the complaint that people come in, but we focus on the strength. Where is the area that the person who's coming in to sit with me, inviting me into their life, where is there a place of resilience? And that's the place and space that I often find that when I sit with somebody becomes the spark of creativity. And that becomes the intersection point for me, not only as a therapist and the science of doing psychotherapy, but the art of doing psychotherapy. And what drew me to this way of life is, first of all, I was supposed to be a vocalist. This was not supposed to happen. My plan was different, but the universe takes us to places that we grow the most. And I learned very early on that the sound of someone's voice, how they spoke, when they spoke, what they said, the cadence of what they said, it had music. It was music to me. Sometimes it was music I really didn't want to hear, particularly when I was told what I didn't want to be told. But it was also a music that told me about people's mood. It taught me about what was their timbre, and I listened. And when I sit with people, I listen, and I hear songs, and I'll sometimes play a song. And it invariably has a point of synchronicity, whether it's the words or the composition. So really getting involved as a psychotherapist for me became as a result of being in an auditory way, very acute in my auditory skills, which was a blessing because I was dyslexic. And in the 70s, the scientific community didn't know what dyslexia was. All I knew was that I couldn't sit still, and I flunked skipping and scissors in kindergarten. That's all I knew.
Nothing at the same time.
Right, exactly. But that powerful experience of being dyslexic and having a mother who was very tenacious in saying, my son is going to learn, she read all of my textbooks into a tape recorder, and what she did was at night she would put the earphones on my ears at night so I could learn, and I would fall asleep, and I would retain what I needed to retain in order to learn. So my life, in terms of being a psychotherapist, I didn't get a get out of jail card free in terms of the experience of the human condition. I had to deal with my own strife and deal with where that came together and how I could be creative. And that's what I bring to my work. And a lot of the work that I now focus on is mindfulness. I'm on the faculty with the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And a lot of what we focus on is how to utilize a sense of self-awareness and self-care as the precipice on being healthy, and with a variety of techniques. So it's a little bit about me and who I am and what I'm going to offer tonight for consideration.
All right, thank you, panelists. All right, now we'll pose my questions to the panelists. The first question, what is your perspective on artistic creativity and consciousness as art, as a positive energy in these current and turbulent times? And I'll start with Matt first.
Wow.
Right next to me, you know.
We have to land 7:30? I think one of the effect that creativity has on consciousness, especially against the backdrop of now, is the flexibility in thinking, is in the way that we can approach the problems that we all face as a collective, and hopefully come up with some solutions that actually save not just culture but our planet, right? It's real. And we need some solutions that are going to just open up everybody's minds to the fact that the problems that we face affect everybody, no matter your race, your religion, your creed, whatever. You're human, you're a person, you're here. It's important, it's going to affect you. With creative practice, it allows everybody an equal opportunity to present their own voice, to add their own thoughts. Everybody, this is something that's free. Doesn't cost money, doesn't require education, doesn't require any kind of social status. It just requires an ability to share, an ability to put yourself out there. I think with just in terms of speaking of sharing and being vulnerable about what's important to you and your perspective on things, if more people did that, it kind of equalizes. And it breaks down some of the walls and the barriers that are created falsely and by mainstream media, fake news, hate speech, all these type of things that divide us. Creative practice can break all those things down. That's, to me, the most important and the baseline for why creative practice is a necessary part of a healthy culture. Yeah.
All right, Deborah?
From my time spent working with special needs children to technology to mentoring young entrepreneurs, creativity has always been a hallmark. When I was growing up, they didn't know what to do with me in school. I mean, they just didn't know what to do because I was one of those folks that always questioned and looked at things completely upside down. And so it was very, very different. And so creativity and consciousness opened you up to new perspectives. What I found is that by engaging in creative practice with my photography on a consistent basis, I now am thinking about other perspectives that I may not have considered. I'm now being able to appreciate new views and points of view, not just photographically or visually, but politically. And the stress of these times really has driven me more to focus more time on art because it is a place of respite. And it's had benefit in multiple ways. I mean, just physically, when I'm focusing on art, I'm not being driven by my calendar, which drives me crazy. And I don't have to worry about when's my next deliverable, when's the next meeting, who do I have to do this for, what, when, where, and how. As an example, I've been transformed by that new Mira building going up, you know, the one that kind of twists. And I've watched it change as it grows in height. And so I was doing a photo play date with a friend of mine, and I said, hey, in between lights, please make sure there's no traffic, because I'm going to lie down in the street, and I want to take a picture of this building. And so he watched the traffic for me, thank God, and I lay down in the street with the camera upside down over my head. I had no concept of time until the horns started. So it creates endorphins, those feel-good hormones, right, that make you feel enriched. And that's why I think that this topic is so important, that we need to find positive places to utilize our energy and to deflect some of all the inbound stress. Spiritually, it's opened me up to considering other types of conscious awareness, and I've been able to expand my spiritual practice that way, and I'm much in gratitude for it. And so that's how the consciousness about art and the value of the positive energy, how it works for me.
I have a funny thought. Can I share?
Sure.
On the way over in the car, I was thinking about this topic, and the scenario popped into my head. What if we sat Trump down with a coloring book, right? And just got him coloring. Yeah, right. Donald, that's a nice thought. That's a nice
I think that's
picture there,
too
right?
advanced for him.
Well, no, right? Yeah, right? He's focusing on his coloring, and then he'll start to talk about all the BS and stuff that's really going on with him, all the insecurities and things. Donald needs a safe space. Right? He needs a safe space.
Michael, can you address from a therapeutic perspective?
Well, this is actually how I was going to start, so how synchronistic. So at the center, we do this exercise at the beginning of the 12-week group that we run and the end of the 12-week group. And we ask people to draw 3 pictures. And the first picture is, how do you see yourself now? The second picture is your greatest problem. And the third picture is your greatest problem solved. And you can only imagine what it's like to put Crayola crayons and literally 3 pieces of paper and markers in front of adult people. They're like, they have to be Picasso, is there a grade? And we actually did this with a group of the faculty, did this when the riot took place in Baltimore. And they worked with the police officers and law enforcement in the community. And we do this, I did this when I went to Parkland to work with the Parkland community. And we use this as a way to understand what's going on subconsciously. Because the subconscious mind speaks in images, in symbols. It speaks to us in self-talk. Our language, our vessels. What we say, how we say it, when we say it, matters. So when we talk about art and consciousness, intrinsically they exist as one, the subconscious mind. All the components that are part of art and what goes into the creative process are the components that are part of the subconscious mind. And becoming aware of the subconscious mind through consciousness. And today, if we take a look at what you were saying, exactly if we did that in the White House, we'd get not only a lot of information, but their central nervous system would calm down a little bit. They'd be a little less reactive, perhaps a little bit more mindful and thoughtful, and maybe think, what's going to be the consequence of how I speak? Because there is a consequence. And we now know that our words have a difference. If we want to look at through the mystical traditions like Kabbalah, the Kabbalists say that the universe gets 99% and we get 1%, which means we have an influence. If you want to look at through quantum physics or E equals mc squared, we have an influence. We have an imprint. So what I think is happening right now in art is a necessity for us in a consciousness because our social media platforms, our platforms that are going on as a result of art need to be boosted in good messaging, in messaging that inspires us, lifts us up, because in many ways we're naturally attracted in fight or flight to negative. Naturally. It's easy. It's easy to galvanize people in fight or flight. And governments know that, and advertising knows that. So I think your example is a brilliant one. I just don't think the receptivity would be quite. And living in Washington, D.C., there's not a lot of receptivity with some people. Not all people, but some. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right, thank you. For the second question, sort of ties right into that. How does creative thinking shape a group mindset? And we'll start with Matt.
All right.
I'll say that again. How does creative thinking shape a group mindset?
I'm going to share.
Go ahead.
Mine? Okay, these words are not my own. His name is Koyo Kuo. He's the founding director of the raw material company in Dakar. He says, hardly any African language has a word for art as a universal definition of creative practice. The different disciplines and practices, which do indeed have characteristic words in all African languages, often manifest in combination and are defined as culture rather than art.
Nice.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I think that, yeah, it's very closely related to, and I'm trying to think about this big picture, you know, in terms of what can, and also practically, what can we do, right? Each one of us, with our desire to do good in the world and support our community. And I know there's a lot of artists here because I recognize the faces. And I know there's people that love art here, otherwise you wouldn't be here and interested. So what do we do as art-loving people to make the world better tomorrow than it is today? How can you get involved, and what can you do to take some action? Because really we can talk all night about how our positive mindsets can create some change, but if we don't do anything about it, it's just going to be the same, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So in all levels of involvement with, you know, which is, I believe, our civic duty to be involved, right? We're here, we take advantage of what we have. It's part of, you know, living in a place where we frankly, it's rough, but we ain't got it that bad, right? We all have areas in our lives where we can contribute to something positive in our world going forward, and what can we leave for generations behind us. You know, through the, so besides my business of McKinley Art Solutions, where I do a lot of behind-the-scenes art stuff, one of the things that I've done that has given me the most pleasure in connecting with my community is the work that I've been able to do with ArtSpan. Right? You don't know about ArtSpan. It's the organization that produces the largest open studios in the U.S. Right here in San Francisco every fall. And we do our best to support the creative class.
You did a great job, actually.
Thank you. Right? I know our executive director is here. She actually goes for credit. We board members following her wake. Joan Madonna.
It's all of you that I do all this work.
Right?
For all of us.
But we have a common belief that there's a lot of power to creativity and what it can add to the culture. But we've got to do something. I guess take action.
Action,
That's my
right.
takeaway from today. Yeah.
Well, everybody will take away some action today. I promise you this.
All right, Deborah.
So my perspective on group thinking and creativity and group thinking comes from my business background. I do global strategic partnerships and sales to marquee clients. In order to do that, you have people that come to a table with a diversity of interests, different goals, different visions, different ways of achieving those goals. They want similar but different outcomes. And oh, by the way, they want to put their stamp on it. They want to put their fingerprint or thumbprint on it. And my approach, which has been very successful for me over whichever career I've been involved with, is much like the Olympic rings. So imagine the 5 Olympic rings. In the middle, you have 3 rings where all 3 converge. That convergence is what I strive for and what I think people bring to group thinking with creativity. To find the sweet spot of where's the mutual goals? What if we reframed the problem so it became a solution instead of a problem? How can we take action? What do we need to do and who's willing to do that? And how can we shape an outcome where everyone wins and everyone benefits? And that benefit can cascade through a variety of communities. So when I think of ArtSpan, to me, that is an intersection, that sweet spot in the community in San Francisco. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, this is from my heart, and nobody's paying me to say this anybody. Just so you know. But it's where do you find where everybody wins, and look at the audience we got tonight. Everybody will take something away from this talk, and hopefully it will spur some creativity, and we will, I guarantee you, have a call to action. So I think about the alliances and partnerships in a broader term of how do you co-create collaboration across communities with diverse interests and find the sweet spot where everybody wins.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome.
So the sweet spot, and I think both of you are really articulating a lot of what I was thinking, and that is there is an intersection point where a group comes together. And I studied group therapy, I've practiced group therapy, I've been in group therapy. The process of being and understanding groupthink is a very powerful process. And I think, like I said earlier, it's easy to galvanize people in fear and in fight or flight and in catastrophe thinking. It's powerful to galvanize people in resourcefulness and strength and empowerment. And that's what I find right now art has a potential more than ever. We are inundated with information at a nanosecond. We have our devices which we're attached to like we are attached when we're connected to our mothers. As infants, it's like it's our identity. And the danger of that, I think, is that we miss out on the interaction and the communication that can happen. One way to bridge that is art, because art communicates in a way that it speaks multidimensionally. It speaks of the mind, it speaks of the heart, it speaks of the psyche, and there we could also move to it speaks to the soul. It has the language of the soul. And more than ever, I think we are in this time in human history where we are not satisfied with the old structures. They don't work for a variety of reasons. So art can become the creative vehicle to be the precipice that sets the way. And unfortunately, that is under attack right now. And it's